In conclusion, with more than 60 species of my brethren on the planet, when I travel, if I ever travel again, I know I can always find a tour guide and a warm nest to snuggle in, and all for free. Talk about your diversity. Oh, and if I hear, "You dirty rat," again, which Jimmy Cagney didn't say, by the way, me and a few million of my closest relatives will make the coronavirus seem like a walk in the park. Bubonic plague, anyone?
Rose, I'm sure no one around here would ever be that cruel. Besides, we are here to celebrate diversity and multiculturalism. Some of my very bestest best friends in Marrakesh, where I overwinter, are rats. Ever decide to hop a ship and take a trip, I'll set you up in style. And your presentation was dreamy, absolutely dreamy. Okay, who is next? Yes, Lorraine. Lorraine, dear, you're up.
Are you sure about this? Is it my turn? Oh, I thought it was yours, Archibald.
No, we changed the order, remember? Just go!
Don't be shy, dear. I'm sure you'll do just fine.
Okay. So, here it goes. Diversity is not a box we check. Diversity is the reality that should be deeply felt and held and valued by every single one of us. Diversity is about all, and we need to figure out how to walk through this diverse, beautiful world together. Our similarities bring us to common grounds. Our differences allow us to be fascinated with one another. As Maya Angelou said, we all should know that diversity makes for a rich tapestry, and we must understand that all of the threads of the tapestry are equal in value, no matter what their color. In diversity, there is beauty and there is strength.
A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. That Maya Angelou, what an absolute dreamboat! Oh, now, where were we? Oh yes, next up to crow about diversity is our dear friend Archibald the Rooster. Take it away, Archie.
Yeah, okay, what can I say? Hens dig me. They dig the way I strut my stuff, they dig my comb, and my waddles. What's not to love? And we're not talking just like one hen here. Oh no, people. We're talking like 20 plus hens. All hot for you know who. And for my part, I'm an equal opportunity lover. No matter big, tall, skinny, plump, a chick by any other name, man. You dig? Who turned up the heat in here? Oh yeah, me!
Can you please explain what your self-identified prowess in the coop has to do with diversity? You're turning this lovely sacred subject into an exercise of the most tawdry kind of erotica!
Not to mention sexist and demeaning.
And repulsive. Bad cockerel.
Oh, get over yourselves. It's in my nature. I can't help it. I was born this way.
What's next? Ruffled tail feathers behind the coop? I mean, how low brow can you get?
Jealous much?
Oh, don't you worry, cocky talkie. I get plenty of loving. You know what they say, curl in the tail. Curl in the tail makes a sow whale. Never heard of the expression?
Pig!
Swine.
Really, you're both revolting. Mavis Bird, can't you turn this crazy bird around?
I never should have got on this flight tonight.
Archibald and Marcos, that is more than enough. Desist immediately, or you'll be out of the show. Do I make myself clear?
Yes, Mavis Bird.
I hear you loud and clear, MB.
It's about respect. R-E-S-P-C-T, find out what it means to me. But Marcos does have a point, Archibald. How on earth does this advance a conversation?
All I'm trying to say is that variety, diversity, is the spice of life.
An odd way of getting there, but it works, I suppose. Next up I see is Marie. Marie, Pumpkin, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Hey, what about me? Don't I get to say my piece about all of this?
Sorry, Marie. I guess you'll have to wait because, of course, Marcos, you must have your say.
Okay. Living on a farm is with all kinds of animals all around you takes some getting used to. Different sleeping and eating habits. It is not easy to adjust to, I find, but since everyone on the farm is an immigrant, so to speak, I figure we have to find a way to live and let live. I like it when the little chickadees land on my back and scratch away with their tiny pokey claws, and the ducks chattering away, gossiping about the snobby geese. Nothing better on a lazy hot summer day to fall asleep to. The quack, quack, quack of it all. It's just life.
How sweet, Marcos, some down-home country wisdom.
And G-rated, I might add.
Okay, Marie, you're up.
Finally! Okay, but, I was going to say this something along the born this way lines, like Archibald. Shoot.
Well, can't you think of something else to say, just off the cuff?
Okay. I'll give it a shot. But okay. I believe that everyone deserves to be welcomed, seen, valued, included, and celebrated. That we each have many identities that make up who we are. Our cultural heritage, our race, our gender identity, our mental well-being, our diverse abilities, and that of our families, our sexuality, and our faiths. The intersections that define who we are make us beautiful and unique. When we appreciate each other's differences and celebrate our diversity, we can all grow towards a more equitable future. Representation matters.
Too right on, Marie. Well said and with such passion. Okay, Fleming, go Deakins, time for you.
The hills are alive with the sound of music. I remember it like it was yesterday. Helicopters and megaphones and oh my, the rain. I can be seen gambling in the background as Julie, dear Julie, was forced to run back and forth and twirl back and forth across that mountaintop again and again and again. The Canada-Austria Summer Mountain Goat Exchange Program was just the best. Truth be told, I was languishing in my job. You know, secretarial work was just not for me. For one thing, my hooves on the keyboard. Hello. What were they thinking in HR, I ask you? And so, when I read about the program in the Georgia Strait, I bleated at the chance.
Am I going crazy or has another one lost the plot? You have been telling that Julie Andrews story forever, Fleming, and I don't see how it ties into our conversation. I really don't.
Oh, well, silly Marie, my trip to Austria was an enriching Cultural exchange. Travel is so broadening. It expands the mind and the soul. And did I tell you about my audition? I was up for the role of the love interest in The Lonely Goat Herd.
Here we go again.
Well, I got the call back, but wouldn't you know it, Flo came to town, and the cramps are something awful. Just think how my life could have changed. The fame was too much for poor simple Elsa, and last I heard, she was drunk as a skunk and eating out of garbage cans behind some schnitzel house in Salzburg. And goats don't eat meat.
What an adventure! And I believe a nice, if tangential, tie-in to our theme. And now, dear ones, places for the finale. Pitch, please, Archibald. A 1 and a 2 and a 3.
Things have come to a pretty pass. Our romance is growing flat. For you like this and the other, while I go for this and that.
Goodness knows what the end will be, or I don't know where I'm at. It looks as if we two will never be one. Something must be done.
You say Dieulita and I say either. You say neither, and ich sage wieder. Dieulita and I either, neither, wieder. Let's call the whole thing off.
You like potato and muja alu panantain. Vous aimez les tomates and I like tomato. Potato, alu, tomate, tomato. Let's call the whole thing off.
But oh, if we call the whole thing off, then we must part. And oh, if we ever part, then that might break my heart.
So if you like pajamas and me gustan los pijamas, I'll wear pajamas and give up pajamas. For we know we need each other, so we better call the whole thing off. Let's call the whole thing off.
You say papawin and I say laughter. You say after and I say wapaki. Papawin, laughter, after, wapaki. Let's call the whole thing off.
You like vanilla and many podobayats di albanil. Hueve sarsaparilla and I sarsaparilla. Vanilla, vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. Let's call the whole thing off.
But oh, if we call the whole thing off, then we must part. And oh, if we ever part, then that might break my heart.
So if you go for oysters and I'd have lil mahari, I'll order oysters and cancel the amalhar. For we know we need each other, so we better call the whole thing off. Oh, let's call the whole thing off.
Oshuo Baba, and you say father, I say mother, and Vudit mer, Vujin, mer, Zio, auntie, let's call the whole thing off.
Oh, I like bananas and you like banana. Jody Golo Havana and I get Havana. Bananas, banana, Chavana, Havana. Go your way and I'll go mine.
So if I go for scallops and you go for humor, so all right, no contest, we'll order lobster. For we know we need each other, so we
Calling.
oh.
Let's call the whole thing off.
Holy smokes, kids, that was out of the world. That was incredible. Excellent work and great singing and those, well, interesting bits about our conversation, huh? So hi, I'm Matt Gould, the host and the moderator tonight for our wonderful program. And tonight on Hear and Be Heard, 10 Community Conversations, co-hosted by the Red Deer Public Library and the Red Deer Puppetry Collective. Oh boy, it's called You Say Tomahto. And as you can see by now, it's all about diversity. Canada is the most multicultural nation in the world. Annual immigration to our country amounts to roughly 300,000 newcomers, one of the highest per capita in the whole world. And as of 2019, 21.5% of people in Canada were born outside of our country. So tonight we're going to discuss our ideas about our multicultural country and how it works and maybe doesn't work. Is it all that it's cracked up to be, or are we falling short? Does Canada even have its own distinct culture? So if you can follow us from this recorded portion of the program over to the live portion, we'll see you there in just a minute or so.
Hi, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the puppet show. I'm Matt Gould, live moderator and host of Hear and Be Heard, 10 Community Conversations. And as you heard just a moment ago, our theme tonight is diversity and multiculturalism with the title, You Say Tomahto. And as normal now in our Zoom meetings and in our conversations, I'm going to start with land acknowledgement. So the Red Deer Public Library and the Red Deer Puppetry Collective recognizes that this land on which we live is the meeting place of Treaty 7 and Treaty 6 regions, representing the Blackfoot, Tsuut'ina, Kainai, and Stoney Nakoda peoples. And this area is also the traditional territory of the Métis, Nahiyawak, and Saulteaux peoples as well. We strive in the spirit of the treaties to keep this a place of trust, friendship, and promise. So I'm going to introduce each of my four lovely community guests who have joined us. And we'll start, and as usual, we're going to go alphabetical in our order, and I'll start with a little introduction, and then I'll give each of them a question. So Bill Franz is our first guest up. He's a first-generation Canadian born in Winnipeg in the mid-1950s, and his immigrant parents, who met as young people in the refugee camp in West Germany, had come to Canada and made him. There we go. Bill's first book is to be released this fall. It's called Muti and Papa, A Love Story. And it's at once a historical account and a happy romance and an earnest examination of what it's like to strive for a future while struggling to cope with life as a refugee. So here's my question to Bill to kick things off. Okay, as the child of immigrants, what kinds of stories did your parents tell you about coming to Canada? And what was that experience like for them?
I've been thinking about that question, Matt, and it was such a long time ago for me. So it's kind of it's just part of who I am as what I remember. The childhood story. So I can't remember exactly when they said what, but in my book, I've translated my parents' love letters to each other that they wrote the year that they were apart. My mother came to Canada first in 1949. And the day that she sailed is the day my father found out that he had been refused. So the letters, deal with that situation and, should she come back, should he try another way, that kind of thing. So, so I grew up knowing that, I had my grandparents and aunt and uncle on the next street, but I also had another family that was in Russia. And, my father couldn't go back, for reasons that'll become clear, in the book. So it was hard for them, as a kid. For me, it didn't really seem that unusual to be the child of immigrant parents. We had lots of immigrant kids in our neighborhood. It was a working class neighborhood. Our school, in fact, that was built in 1913 was actually built for that purpose, to help immigrant children actually become part of the fabric of Canada. So I think, though, as adults, for my parents and for other adults, it was a lot more difficult. Just an aside, my wife's parents came from the Netherlands, and so my wife's father was told by somebody that you're DPs. He said, "We're not DPs, we're immigrants," because they weren't displaced persons. My family was, her family was not. So certainly immigrants had to deal with, and still do actually have to deal with things like that.
Well, I remember as a young person growing up, on our block, we had lots of people from a variety of countries, mostly Europeans, Germans, Slavs, maybe. And that slur, as you said, a DP, someone would call someone a DP, and it was directly related to their coming to Canada from the war and a displaced person. And it was kind of a harsh reality for them even then. But I wonder if your parents had a sense of what Canada was. Did it feel like it was the promised land? Because of course they're coming from Germany, and Germany is this total disaster in that time, right? And then the feelings that they might have experienced as people coming from Germany, the people we had just been at war with. So I wonder if that was also part of the fabric of your growing up. And yet you married a woman from the Netherlands, her parents came from the Netherlands. So it's kind of, there's the Netherlands and there's Germany. So it represents this portion. Your story certainly represents an important part of Canada's history that time after the war, hey?
Yeah, they were really happy to come to Canada, partly because of their situation. They were at risk of being deported, I guess, repatriated to the Soviet Union. And in my father's case, because he had served in the German army, he would likely have been shot. And if not, he would have been sent off to the Gulag, which is where, my grandfather was shipped during the war. And so, they were really happy to come to Canada. Late in my dad's life, my mom had passed away already, and he came out for a visit here, and I was playing some music in my camper at the time, and most of the music, he didn't really care for. He didn't really like Ian Tyson, for example, Four Strong Winds, that kind of. But there was one tape that I played that he really liked, and I can't remember the fellow's name, but the songs were, you could really hear the singer's voice, more than the instruments, and it'd be comparable to, this land is my land, this land is your land. Like Canada really was the land of opportunity for them, not so much for them, but they knew it was for their kids.
Wow. Yeah. And I think to be honest, from what I've understood, that can be the story for a lot of people who are coming and wanting to make a better life for their children. So they'll say, we'll go through those hardships, and hopefully, in a sense, for our children. That's great. Thanks, Bill. So next, we're going to meet Dieulita Datus, and she herself identifies as a forever immigrant. Okay, I find that really interesting. So we'll talk about that, because that's fascinating. Almost vegan. Yeah, okay, almost vegan, and a rad auntie. So I'm assuming rad means radical, yeah? And she is the programs director of Ubuntu Mobilizing Central Alberta. So here's the question for you, Dieulita. When you think of Canada and the idea of Canada as a multicultural mecca for people around the world, what kinds of challenges come to mind for you, and what uplifts you?
That's a good question. As a forever immigrant, I always enjoy coming into any of the airports in Canada. Because you see so many different people, not just coming in, but serving as customs officers, as who are working at the concession stands. And like, it just feels like, you're in Canada. I just love it. So and that's to start off with the good, the things that makes Canada, Canada. Also, when you're going to certain festivals, all of the festivals that we have, even in Alberta, like Diwali, and hanging out with the Africans and having their festivals, and Carrie West and Caribana in Toronto, which is one of the largest festivals, I think, not the largest festival in North America. So when you think about that, it's amazing. Or getting Haitian food in Edmonton. Like that to me speaks about what makes Canada really multicultural. And I absolutely enjoy it. I find it creates so much joy. But at the same time, you can see pockets, I always say pockets of segregation in Canada, in Alberta. Like, for example, there are still events and spaces and places that I go to where I'm the only person of color. And I'm still asked, where are you from? I've lived here, I've lived in Lacombe for about 14 years now. And so Lacombe is home. And to go into certain spaces and to be treated almost as a foreigner again, and you almost have to establish your ownness and saying, this is home, this is where I'm from. That's where the pockets of segregation comes in. And that's where we can tell that we're not really as multicultural as it seems or as it appears. So we can celebrate the multiculturalism that we see, but at the same time, look forward to being more integrated together. So yeah, that's what I think so far about multiculturalism in Canada.
So it sounds a bit to me like it's a work in progress. You're sort of saying, look, I'm taking it sort of where it is and understanding the stage that it's at, and that it's aspirational in the sense that the goals of the government and things are multicultural and positive in that way. But as you say, you run into some festering pockets once in a while.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks. And we'll get back to some of these things as we're bringing them up. So next up, we have Elena Rousseau. And Elena arrived from Romania about 20 years ago, following to Red Deer with her Canadian husband. While here, she decided to follow her passion for painting and writing. So she completed the visual arts program at Red Deer College, then graduated from the University of Calgary with the BA in English. She says it didn't get rid of her accent, though. She has a passion for artist community and has volunteered thousands of hours in support of numerous local organizations. And I don't doubt thousands of hours, because Elena, I've seen you at so many a variety of different things, right, over the years. So here's my question for you. Before you came to Canada all those years ago, as a love immigrant, what kind of an idea did you have about Canada, where you were immigrating to?
Well, I don't know with what to start, because what you said is quite intriguing, and I'd like to answer to that. But to answer to your question, I didn't know much about Canada. I knew that it's the second largest country in the world, that is very cold, that is on the American continent. And I vaguely heard that it was multicultural, although like I couldn't much imagine how that was, because I grew up in a socialist country, and we were very much discouraged to read anything about countries that weren't like communist, or there were capitalists. Capitalism was considered very bad. So there were no writings, no books that one could inform himself, herself. And it wasn't in the curriculum, other than the geographical location of Canada. So I didn't know very much. Multiculturalism also, it was discouraged in my country.
Sure.
because we could have, if we talked to other people that weren't from our country, we could have found out that people lived better than we did. So it was a big no-no. And that's about how much I knew about Canada. But I have to go back a little bit about my thousands of hours of volunteering. It's all because my Canadian husband encouraged me to follow my passion and to do what I enjoyed to do. And what I enjoyed was like connecting with other people and giving the time that he actually practically offered me to people and to organizations that I loved.
That's great. That's like fantastic. And it's really interesting, you know, this little silly question that I came up with, like, what did you think of Canada before? so many people who are coming here, what they've read and what they've seen and talked to from friends and stuff. I can't even imagine what they think of, this big place, huge, millions of kilometers and all that kind of stuff. Thanks. That's a great start. Okay. Ola Zein Alabdin is from Syria, and she's proud of her culture and history and passionate about sharing her life's journey. You have dedicated yourself to speaking at as many public forums in Red Deer and Central Alberta as possible. So that's really great. You're out there and making some noise. She's a motivated, compassionate, and strong 23-year-old community leader, and is currently a student at Red Deer College. So you have a commendatory attitude and is grateful to Canada for the opportunities given to you and your family. And you'd like to become a psychologist, and she's in her first year of psychology at RDC. So a go-getter and a worker, that's like great. So here's my question for you. In your bio, the one that I just read, you mentioned that you're grateful to Canada for your opportunities that you've been given to you and your family. So can you tell us a little bit about this idea of opportunities?
For sure. Thank you so much for inviting me to this. And the word grateful I usually used in all my presentation or where I ever go to share my personal experience, because I think when my family and we needed a home, a second home. We needed a very secure place and to save a place for us to be in and continue and to live. Canada was the first country who opened the doors for us, and Canadian opened their hearts for us to continue and to be here. When I spent 3 years in Jordan, and it was so hard after, like, I left Syria and then I spent 3 years in Jordan as a refugee, and it was so hard to continue with living, even to get education. I remember myself one day going to school and wanted to just be registered in one of their school, and the principal of that school said to me, "We don't have a chair for you." And that was heartbroken for me. And I was a child, and I told her, "Do you want me to get my chair from home?" So that was my answer for her, because I was like, "You don't have a chair for one person in your school?" And when I came to Canada, I remember myself, my teacher, how they introduced me to the class. It was so lovely and it was so welcoming. And even I did not understand any word from them that moment, because I came with no English. But their face, their eye, their body language let me understand how welcome I am there, and how grateful I am to be in Canada for and what is a beautiful opportunity that Canada gave it me and my family to just start and beginning our life from the bottom. Because in the war, we left everything, like everything. We start from the bottom here in Canada. We left everything behind. We came with our clothes, and we said no to that life. So we will build a new life. We're not going to forget about Syria. We're not going to forget about our country. We're always proud to be Syrian, but we also will be very proud and very grateful to be here in Canada.
Boy, that's so wild, because for someone like me who grew up here, and I'm like a 6th or 7th generation Canadian, and to hear stories like this, it's very moving for me, because I think, wow, I get stuff handed to me and I just sort of sail through the world on a certain level, right? And you've got all these things that are, heavy and weighing, and yet you have such this gorgeous, positive energy and light in your eyes, and it's very touching.
Thank you so much. And yeah, that's always what I tell the student in the school, because I do a lot of presentations in school around Alberta, and I told them to be always thankful for what they have, because they never know what another child have been through, and they are so lucky to have education, to have their fathers, their mothers just by their side, to have aunties and uncle by their sides, to have somebody to support them. So just be careful for the water, for the clean water, the clean air that you're having in Canada, for the security. You can sleep and nobody can, you're not afraid that somebody will come to your home, bomb it, or will ask you to leave, right? So yeah, I always ask them just to be grateful for Canada and for what the opportunity they're having here in Canada. So yeah, you're right.
Well, and isn't part of it the whole thing about empathy, right? Opening up and
Exactly.
understanding people's experiences and saying, well, guess what? I'm actually a human. You're actually a human. How do we find that area? And I think that's one of the gorgeous things about at least the theory of multiculturalism, right? So I'm going to get to a couple of statements and then we'll throw some questions out. So multiculturalism as a national policy was adopted in 1971 by the Liberal government of Pierre Elliott Trudeau. And at first it seemed to focus on the idea and support of ethnic, cultural, and folk art type activities like dance and music as a way of fostering the idea of many cultures creating a mosaic, as opposed to the American version of a melting pot. So my question to everybody, just let's do a quick roundy on this one. This will be a quick round, right? So do you think that art and music and food is the core to multiculturalism, and does it go deep enough into a bridging of gaps and understanding, or is it kind of a little bit like a first step? Because Canada actually was the first country in the world to adopt an official multicultural policy, and that was in 1971. So let's go reverse order. Let's start with Ola, and we'll work back in the reverse alphabet.
So I think music and food and all these kind of stuff that represent your culture, represent where you come from, represent who you are. So when you like speaking about dancing or speaking about music, you see First Nation, you see the beautiful way that they represent themselves. And you see the maybe African people, how they dance, how they do music. That's the culture. That's what make they are. That's what make them they are. That what makes them where they are coming from. If I am going to change that I'm going to change my personality, that I'm going to change my identity. So this is what it's like. This is my identity. Identity is your culture. Your culture is the food you eat, the clothes you wear, the behave you do in the community. Maybe the celebration that you celebrate in back home that you're keeping celebrate here, just to keep that. And by Canada is allowing everybody to celebrate what they. So in 2 days we are, as a Muslim, we're celebrating Eid. We will be marking the beginning of the ending of Ramadan, and we will celebrating Eid. And we have a lot of festival, like if it not COVID, we will be celebrating all together. We will be gathering. We will be having Muslims and non-Muslims in that celebration, in that festival, to all celebrate all together and teach people who we are and why we are coming to Canada. And that's all so beautiful. That's all so gorgeous to show people around you and to keep the culture that you're coming from.
Nice. Okay, Elena.
Yeah, well, it's hard to add to that, but I would say that we can go even deeper into what that is. I always wished that I could learn more about the people that are in this, well, city mostly, because I haven't traveled too much outside it, but to me it looks like the multicultural society is mostly like in landscape, whatever we can view. And yes, indeed, there are some places where you can sample food from other cultures. Not that is necessarily the exactly food that you can find there, because when I visited Lebanon and Syria, and then I went to a couple of places here in Red Deer which serve food from that kind of zones. There are several differences that only by going there you'd be able to realize. But there is more to culture, like. And it's not necessarily always good. It's not necessarily that always people from here will approve. Like in my country, as I was growing up, everybody was encouraged to say what's in his mind exactly at the moment that it came in the mind, no matter who was talking. So there are a lot of loud voices voices all talking on top of each other, and eventually, you know, things go out well. Nobody's bothered by it. Here I had to really learn hard or study hard, try hard to change that in me, because I want to say what, when I have an idea, I want to say it immediately, which here, you know how it is, you know, like if I did that, it will create a chaos that nobody would enjoy it necessarily. So yeah, there are more things. Like when I was in Red Deer College, I enjoyed taking anthropology classes, and I learned a lot by watching videos of other cultures, of the way that they live in those places, and it was beautiful. I loved to see. I get goosebumps just thinking about several videos that I saw, and just simple people, you know, going about their lives with, you know, maybe the cows on the field, or going getting water from the well. And I also remember the ways I grew up when I was visiting my grandmother and getting water out of the well. And yeah, those things are kind of lost on my children. I don't think they know much about it, like for what they are concerned, like the salad grows in the supermarket. So not really. Like I love to garden, so they saw where the salad comes from. But yes, and I should probably like to see the city council or maybe the government in bigger scale encouraging a little bit more. They always said show your culture, but sometimes it's hard just by saying show your culture. It doesn't necessarily make it that we can do that. Like my community, it's a small community, the Romanians in Red Deer, so I would have loved to show our dancing, to show, you know, different aspects of the culture, but we can't afford to rent a place where we can practice. So therefore, I've been dancing with the Ukrainian and with the Scottish country dancers, because they are a little bit bigger community and they can afford for professors. They can afford to pay professors and to pay those places for rehearsal. So would be very nice if in like on top of being encouraged to show our culture, if something was done in order that we actually can do that without too much expenses, like now I'm missing the word.
No, right.
Personal
Yeah.
expenses, yes.
Well, and you're raising an interesting point. Before we go into Dieulita, I'll just sort of comment that for many people, the first blush of a cultural connection comes through food and dance and music, for example. But we then know that a deeper level is the relationships within the family, the relationships to authority, the ways in which, you know, you have a nuclear family or an extended family, your values. That becomes a deeper thing that, you know, moves beyond, boy, I love those tacos, or boy, that baba ganoush was delicious, or whatever it was, right? So Dieulita,
Yeah.
let's go to you with that same question around, you know, music, food, all that kind of stuff. Where do you feel that takes us?
I think it's very surface level. Like it's just at the tip of the iceberg, right? It's the thing that everybody likes to see. It's the food, it's the dancing, it's coming together, it's the fun things. But it goes, you don't get to know people beyond that, really, right? And then it's also classing people together. I'm Haitian, Haitian born, Bahamas raised, and now Canadian living. But even in Haiti, if you were to ask me, what's the national dish of Haiti? There's so many different dishes, right? So many different people, so many different ways that we speak. I can tell if a Haitian is from Cape Haitian because they sound different. It's almost like the Newfoundlanders here. And so if I'm Haitian though, and I'm presenting as being a part of multiculturalism, it's almost this curated look, this almost identifying look, right? And if you notice, whenever we talk about multiculturalism, it's always the cultural wear. It's never jeans and t-shirt, right? Like it's always the flashy, this is what I wear. But what happens on a daily basis when I'm just wearing a hoodie and a t-shirt, or sweats and a t-shirt and sneakers? That's real multiculturalism. And as everyone was speaking, I was thinking that multiculturalism is being asked to put on display for arts, music, and dance, to celebrate and show gratefulness for being Canadian, right? For being Canadian. But being Canadian is being part of the planning committee and ensuring that prayers and chants and other identifying factors are also included. It includes saying names correctly. It includes different stories being written. That's what is really multiculturalism. And I think that we still have so much more, so much further to go. Good first step, but I would really like to see us go even further or dig deeper. Because as we look at even some of the laws that's being passed now, right, restricting people from wearing certain things that they identify with in certain provinces. And I was reading an article just this week about the first RCMP Mountie to wear a turban. Mm-hmm. And that was 30 years ago. And as I was reading some of the thoughts and comments that was being made 30 years ago, some of the same sentiments are still being held today. And that case was actually taken to the high courts of Canada to restrict that. So we've been a multicultural country from 1970. Did you say 1971? So from 1971, we're a multicultural country. But 30 years ago, we were still restricting people from really identifying with who they are. So to me, it still says that, yes, we can celebrate, but we can also look forward to better things to come and how to better include people. Because yes, it's good to celebrate, but what about when we're mourning? What about the hard times? And that's what really makes multiculturalism at its root.
Well, I think that's part of the crucible. And we'll get onto some of those things like in the next question or so, because we're sort of starting and moving our way through, but you're raising obviously very important points, because it's not all about the sequins and the headdresses and the feathers or the leather or whatever it is we're wearing. So, that is, as you say, an issue. So Bill, you give us a quick final word on this question.
Yeah, I really enjoyed listening to the other participants. So, just a confession here, like 50 years ago, I remember when, Pierre Trudeau was our swinging prime minister, and I wasn't old enough to vote, but I would have voted for him.
Me too.
And so, I kind of, as, in my late teens, basically, multiculturalism really appealed to me personally. And I'm really glad we're not a melting pot, honestly. I just want to talk very briefly about something in Winnipeg. I'm from Winnipeg, and there's many ethnic groups there. And there's an event called Folklorama, which is a week or 2 weeks of all these different cultural festivals. So you could go, say, I don't know if the Romanians have a pavilion, but you could go to the Romanian pavilion or the Haitian pavilion or the Syrian pavilion. I have to say the German one was always very popular with the papa, and chugging beer. And I think I only went once, but it was a good time. But I like the Greek pavilion and Ukrainian pavilion, of course, is very popular as well. So I see that kind of thing. Everybody more or less likes food and music and art, and it's a good way to celebrate your heritage, but it's also a good way to reach out to other people that don't know as much about you. But I think it's only a stepping stone, to be honest. And just listening to the other participants here and thinking about my own interactions with people from other countries over the years, I sense there's a hunger. There's a hunger among immigrants to interact with other Canadians, and I think it's normal. We want to relate to the people around us, right? And we don't really want to feel different. We want to feel accepted. And I think that stepping stone of arts and culture and music is a way to get into that. But where, it's obviously better as we get to know each other as people. So.
Right. Yeah. Good. I think that's an excellent point. And I like the idea that it feels like these layers in a cake or something, right? Where we're starting here, and at least that's some kind of connection. But as Dieulita says, right, take off the regalia, take off the clothing that you dance in and celebrate your ancient traditions, which might not mean anything to you now either, right? We expect people from other countries, to get into your special costumes. And of course, that's what you wear at home when you're going to buy bread and you're doing this and that. Well, guess what? No, maybe we do that at once a year or something, right? And yeah, so since 1996, it took, 20 some years, our census has collected information about visible minorities in Canada. And the emphasis in the policies from the government shifted once again, and this time they went to eliminating racism and discrimination. So we don't have that much time left unless we'll keep going and then maybe we'll have a slightly longer one tonight because this is really deep, obviously. So from each of your own perspectives, again, maybe just a couple of quick thoughts on this idea of eliminating the racism and discrimination. But I think we've started to dance around that a little bit already, right? So we've kind of approached some of that. So I don't know, who wants to go? Raise your hands and just start. There you go. Dieulita, go ahead.
Since it's my day job, I guess I might as well go first.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I find it interesting that eliminating racism and putting in there discrimination and all of that was actually in I guess entrenched, but again, very surface level, like good start, but very surface level. And I think part of that too is recognizing sometimes you have to tear down the house to rebuild it, right? So if you have a termite problem, and I'm not a builder, so I'm just using that analogy, but if the core or the foundation of the house is not well built, if it's not safe, or if there's like some hazard in the house, fixing a window is not going to make it better. It's not going to make it safer. Or adding plants or flowers will not do that. But sometimes you have to start from the bottom and look at the root of the issue, the foundation. And I think that's what we need to do in order to fight, especially racism. Because a lot of people don't understand that the laws today were built on when we were a racist country, quote unquote, right? Right. And that goes for the US and other countries that was founded on that. Nothing has changed since the 1700s much. And so we're still holding on to a lot of those, of that foundation. So I think to eliminate racism will be to really take a deep look, a deep dive into the foundations and the laws and even the reservation systems, right? And really having that hard look. But again, it's a tough conversation. It's a hard conversation, and it would require all of us to give up some of the things that we enjoy. But I guess until then, we can dance and sing and share beer together.
But isn't that also, though, I think one of the positive things I'm seeing right now is that when we look at Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd murder and how that accelerated the conversation and how social media is really exploding that, because you know what, nothing can happen in some quiet corner without people making noise and commenting on it. And I think I would agree that we're nowhere near where we need to be, but I think this thing is pushing forward, and I think it's, but
anyway. I think it took the death of George Floyd to do that.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
The system didn't say, hey, we need to change this. It took his death being recorded and played and people marching and being in the thousands to change that. So it shouldn't take another death to do that. The system should look at it and say, okay, we need to change.
Right, 100%, for sure. Ola, let's go to you.
So I have nothing to add to what just Dieulita said. It's well said, and we don't need to take another death to take an action and to do something about this or to fight racism, but also it's our responsibility to teach people around us, because people need somebody to talk to them. People need to know about what's going on and why we are why we have to fight racism. So we need to teach people, we need to have people speaking up, we need to take an action, do something about it, speak up, say we are fighting racism in here, we are multicultural country, and we need to live in this country together and make it better for everybody, not just like, you mean make it better for the next generations, not just for us now. So by taking an action, by speaking up, by not being afraid, by being strong and saying that's who I am, and I'm not gonna be shy of it, I am strong, I have a power of my voice should be heard, you are doing something, you are fighting racism. You don't have to be like working with the government, you don't have to be working with the police to be taking action. No, you are by just are like the human you are, the with your thoughts, with your ideas, sharing what you have, sharing your culture, sharing why you are here in Canada and what you are doing. That is a fighting, and that is an action. So I think, yeah, to take an action, you just need to be strong, and that's
Yeah.
it.
Making noise and getting out there.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So Elena, we'll go to you. Oh, Bill, you go, and then we'll go to Elena. So we'll keep it kind of, go ahead.
It just made me think of something I read. I spent a lot of time keeping up on the news. And so in Charlottetown, well, across the country, there's the issue of our first Prime Minister, John A. Macdonald, and the fact that he was a racist and drank a lot and did different things. But so in some places, statues of John A. Macdonald are coming down. And I don't really have a problem with that personally. But what I found interesting was in Charlottetown City Council, the majority of City Council. So it's just like our Reverend Gates sitting on a bench downtown in downtown Red Deer. So in Charlottetown, I haven't seen it. John A. Macdonald is sitting on a bench. So you can go and sit beside him and have, take a selfie or take a picture. But the First Nations that are near by, have made some suggestions to the City Council about how we can tell the other part of the story, and which they're going to do, basically. So there'll be an Indigenous person, probably an Indigenous woman, and there'll be, you won't just hear the good stuff about John A. Macdonald, you'll hear the other stuff too. So it's an important part of the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's vital and important. And I say, wake up, start reading, start talking. It's, that starts when it starts here and moves into your heart and all that stuff. Elena, let's finish this subject off with you.
Well, I don't know much about the racial problem, because I grew up in a part of the world where we didn't have people of colors, or to speak of. So I grew up remembering the hands drawn on flags with one black hand and one white hand together, and it was lovely. But what's happening today is in a way scary to me, because it looks like somebody is pitting the whites against the blacks in some way. I don't like it, and I don't understand it. If we are to unify our society, I don't think that this is the right way to go. I think that erasing those barriers would be a better way of doing it, instead of like increasing that line between like I'm colored and I'm not. I don't know how that can be solved. All I know from my history lessons long ago, it was that, white people in America fought that secession war, it was called, in which they, like one part was against the practice, the awful practice of slavery, and the other ones, they wanted to keep it. So it was white men fighting white men in order to solve this problem. There were white people in slavery, and there were black people in slavery of other black people. But you know, at that particular time, they fought for freeing the black people that were wrongly enslaved. And I am afraid that dividing the society like that, it's gonna lead to no good place. Maybe something should be changed a little bit, tweaked, that we still keep going forward. I am totally against racism, but it should be addressed in a very delicate way, and not enraging some of the, you know, other people that might not understand the way it's being fought today. Don't know.
Well, yeah, I hear you. I just think that, I don't know. I mean, I think it's a hard issue, and I think that the hard things have to be said, and anger has to be expressed, and lines have to be drawn, and things have to be torn down. I mean, absolutely, because even in the small way that I know as a gay man, when I was growing up and coming out, we had to march, we had to fight, we had to be very, very angry to move the needle, to get some rights. And for someone to say, okay, you have value in our society and in our world. So I always go back to that, and I say, wait a minute, as a young man, what was I experiencing when people were literally, the police used to take members of the gay community out to the beaches and beat them up in Toronto. And I went to a gay self-defense course, and there wasn't a single person who hadn't been physically attacked. So from my perspective, I think, yes, we need the hard conversations, and we need that anger, and I think we need to tear a lot down. And I think white people have to move over and open up. I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's something that's just going to peacefully move over, because guess what? Peaceful conversation has been happening for a long time. So Dieulita, maybe a last little thing from you. Sorry, Elena, but because we're just gonna slide forward a bit.
Yeah, no, I'm with it. I am a child of the revolution. My Haitian ancestors were the ones who fought to liberate the island of Haiti after years of enslavement. They had to fight. And then after they fought and they won, they had to pay Franz money in reparations. So the people who were enslaved fought and liberated themselves, and then had to pay the people who enslaved them. And my grandparents and great-grandparents had to pay that until, I believe, 1947, to the tune of billions of dollars. Like, imagine being enslaved, winning your freedom, fighting for your freedom, dying, and then having to pay for that. And so I will always be with people who are fighting for their liberation, for their freedom. Because sometimes it does take hard work and hard conversation and hard fights. And then other times it also takes the peaceful conversations as well, right. Meeting over coffee and having a chat. But when it comes to human rights, when it comes to taking the lives of others, I cannot in good faith or conscience sit and say, well, you know, let's just wait. And so I always want to remind people, and there are still colonies today. Like, there are still countries that's still colonized today, and there are still laws that's being held. So I welcome easy conversations, and I also think that for systemic changes to be made, it has to be a hard fight.
Yeah, it's kind of big.
Just a second, I would like to comment. Like, I do not want to shut off the debate. On the contrary, I should like to see more of those discussions going on. What I dislike is, like, there is a book called White Fragility by Dr. D'Angelo, and she says the white people cannot say they are not racist. Like, okay, all of a sudden I am the wolf, I'm the bad people, and the other one are, you know, like, it's kind of like I am made to fight for my right of not being the wolf. I'm not the wolf. I want to discuss, and I want everybody to join in debate about this subject instead of shutting up one side and just hearing the other side, which is right. But you know, there might be like shades of different colors in between. So yeah, that was
Well,
it.
maybe, but this isn't the forum for us to go down that complete rabbit hole, because of course, I think we understand that there are a whole bunch of things, you know, on the table that in some ways aren't easy. So I'm just gonna finish with my last question, if that's okay, if we're all still breathing and not sweating too much. So in recent polls, Canadians in general are supportive of a multicultural policy. And perhaps we're proud of the fact that Canada was the first country in the world to officially adapt and adopt this multicultural policy. Although when it comes to religion, there seems to be more of a division on the question. That's a bit more challenging for Canadians, but on the whole, everybody's giving it thumbs up, the idea of multiculturalism on the whole. So here's my question. What makes your heart soar when you think of this place that we call home? Or does it soar at all? Soar, you know, meaning yay, that kind of taking wings and flying up to the sky in a happy celebratory way. So I want to end on a, you know, let's have a sense of what makes you soar in S-O-A-R, not S-O-R-E. S-O-A-R means like a bird soaring into the sky happily.
Well,
Heart lifting. Okay, so let's go for you, Bill.
let me jump in here. You know, I mean, I like lots of color. I like flowers. I like diversity. I like seeing different things. My wife and I were out for a bike ride the other day, and there were two, I'd say teenage girls dressed in their saris, doing an art photo shoot on the trail. So, you know, we're coming around the corner fairly quickly. They move off and we smile at each other. I mean, that makes my heart soar because, if everybody was white like me, it'd be very, very boring.
Nice, good. Who wants to go next? Okay, Ola, you go ahead.
So what make my heart soar when I go around and see the beautiful faces and the beautiful children, small children in schools, and how their parents taught them, or how their parents what kind of family they grow up, and what kind of community they grow up, and how lovely they are and respectful and really open-hearted, want to listen to me and with all their heart, and when I listen why I am here, and they ask a lot of good questions and want to know what's going on around them in the community. And also I love when somebody see me in just the street with, when I go anywhere, and I expect people to look at me differently just because of this hijab or of this fabric on my head, and it's not bother me. I am very okay with that. I love when people look at me, and when they are like, yeah, I love that when they are looking at me and seeing that I am different, because I love to be different. It's okay to be different. It's really okay to be different. I love that about Canada, because when you are welcoming, when somebody welcoming you and you feel that you are welcoming, you relax. You feel like, oh, here we go. I can speak up as I like. I can do what I want to do. And I am not, I'm not that kind of person who's like going to be, oh, I don't want to say this. Maybe this is going to hurt somebody. Maybe this is going to make me not look nice. I don't know about this culture. I don't want to speak. No, when you feel like you're welcoming, when you feel like you are with a great heart and they want to listen to you, you feel like you are in good hands, and you want to speak up about yourself, and you are strong enough to do it. And as I told you, I am okay when you look at me differently, because I love to be different, and it's okay to be different.
Fantastic. That's great. Elena.
Well, there are so many things that I love about this place. It's even hard to begin. But about diversity, because we are talking about the diversity here, I love seeing all this richness of different people and cultures. And my only soar, like not with the soar SOAR, but the SORE, is that I should love to see and meet them more often. And I do not have the possibility. I just can't walk to somebody and start a conversation. It feels awkward. So I would like to see a place in into our community where we can all meet on regular basis, maybe once a week, maybe once a month, and we all can be there to like make friends and know one another. Let them talk about their cultures, about, or just seeing them in their beautiful costumes, my beautiful costume, which I could bring, you know, that would be awesome. But I do enjoy seeing and all the richness that we do have. So I only can be grateful for it.
Nice. Dieulita.
Okay, so for me, to soar, SOAR, two things comes to mind, and hockey is one of them. I'm a huge Calgary Flames fan. I hope that doesn't get me booted off the panel, but I see Bill is like, okay, friends off. But I am a huge hockey fan, and I enjoy being in a hockey arena pre-COVID, of course, and sitting next to someone. And if our team scores, like just like high-fiving a random stranger or hugging and just sharing in that love for a sport. That is the first thing that comes to mind. Just being in a hockey arena next to hundreds and hundreds of people and cheering for the same team and booing the Oilers is a part of the identity. And then the other thing is being on a panel like this with so many of us, with so many different stories, and being able to have conversation. That's not possible in a lot of places. It's not welcome in a lot of places, so I'm grateful for that. But then at the same time, like Elena said, there's a little bit of soreness, SORE, whenever I think about me as an immigrant benefiting and living well off a land that was taken from Indigenous people. And so my heart is always sore when I'm next to a reserve or attending a missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls march and things like that. So it's always sore and sore at the same time, but I get, you know, it's a part of the journey. But yeah, hockey comes to mind.
That's fantastic. So it's funny that you mentioned the Indigenous population and the First Nations, because our next conversation in June, which comes up on the 8th of June, same time, same station, is called We Were Here First. And we're looking at Indigenous issues. And maybe, fingers crossed, we have this fantastic surprise up our sleeves at the Red Deer Puppetry Collective, but we're not quite sure. It's not sort of all settled yet, so I ain't gonna say nothing. So I wanna thank Ola and Dieulita and Bill and Elena and Tatiana for coming and engaging in this fantastic conversation. You uplift all of you uplift me, and make me this super happy Canadian to be lucky enough to be a part of this whole darn shooting match. So until next month, from the Red Deer Puppetry Collective and the Red Deer Public Library, I'm Matt Gould, and thank you all so much.